100 years ago, Nikola Tesla discovered a healing technology that threatened the entire pharmaceutical industry. The day he died, the government seized everything. For 100 years, this technology was hidden. Until now, plasma is back. Tesla Club, tzla.club.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Friday's episode of Trending. It's good to be back with you. Obviously not been here for a couple of almost 2 weeks now. Been busy working on a brand new documentary on the flat earth, which is hopefully going to come out late August, early September. Really interesting few days, some fascinating stories, some fascinating discussions, some very interesting and very passionate people. So that's led me to want to talk this morning a little bit about space in light of this story from a couple of days ago. NASA unveils next steps to build permanent base on the moon.
In the 3 phases we've described, we hope to have some sort of habitation capability in phase 2 with the pressurized rover. That will be where the astronauts can land on their human-rated lander, hop on the pressurized rover and basically work and explore the moon on a short-lived environment. And then from there, go to different locations where they can get out of the pressurized rover, perhaps hop onto a lunar terrain vehicle, and even go farther with EVA suits. In phase 2, we'll be building permanent infrastructure, including laying out a power grid and things like that, all building up to what it takes to do permanent habitation. And then eventually, when we've matched the assets, habitation modules, with the logistics and all the things to move the logistics around, then we'll be able to say, hey, we're permanently here and we're not giving it up.
Now, lots of people will say that there has already been bases on the moon, particularly on the far side of the moon, as you know, we only see one side of it. Even though it's supposedly spinning, we only ever see the front face of it, and the dark side of the moon, as it's known as. What's there? Who knows? Is there something there already? And the whole concept of the moon is something that is very fascinating, to say the least. You've got the claims that the moon isn't real in the sense of it's not a natural body. It hasn't always been there. Ancient tribes have talked about being there before the moon came. They've also talked about the fact the moon is like an egg with a yolk taken out. So it's hollow. And, you know, the whack theory that it's hit some rock that hit the earth and then created the moon, and that didn't really add up. So then NASA came back with the double whack theory, and it doesn't really make any sense why it's there. It's far too big to be orbiting a planet of this size. You know, it's bigger than the planet Pluto, for example. So there's so many anomalies about the moon, to the point that even a mainstream scientist a number of years ago said the easiest way to explain the moon is human observational error. It's not really there. That's easier to explain than actually explaining how it is there. So clearly, whatever your beliefs are, the moon is not what we're told it is, and how it got there is certainly not how we're told it got there. So whenever you see stories about either walking on the moon, 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and so on, or the Atmos missions, which we'll come to in a second, you've always got to take that with a pinch of salt, because so much of what we are told, if not all we are told, is a lie, or is exaggerated, or is inverted. So there's so many potential holes in the stories. So to continue on with this story, NASA has released data and details of robotic landers, hoping drones and vehicles it aims to send to the moon to be able to build part of a lunar base. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' space company, Blue Origin, is one of several companies picked up to build machines. Well, that brings us right to today, as a Blue Origin rocket has blown up in Florida during a test launch. The rocket was carrying 48 satellites to put into space. Exactly what those satellites were to do is kind of a bit of an unknown at this stage. The US wants to land Americans back on the moon before Trump leaves office in 2029, but NASA is competing with China to return humans to the lunar surface, meaning the space agency is under pressure to try and win the new space race. Now, if you remember back in the administrations of the 60s, there was the supposed space race between Russia and the US to get to the moon. First, it was under the early Kennedy regime, JFK regime, when this supposedly began during the Apollo missions. And obviously the Americans claimed to have walked on the moon. A number of people following the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. Now, I think if you did a random bunch of questions to people in the street and you picked 20 people at random and said, do you believe the moon landings were real? I think you'd get a pretty mixed bag, just from my experience of talking to people about it, and pretty mainstream thinkers and everyday people that weren't necessarily into anything alternative. They've all got questions about it for a number of reasons, really. There's so many holes you want to pick in it. The flag waving when there wasn't any atmosphere, the footprints, the pictures that were taken, alongside the fact that we supposedly had the technology in 1969, yet today we don't. Those things just don't make any sense. They don't make any sense. When you go and look at the museums and you see the lunar module, it literally looks like a tinfoil can that somebody has made, and you're meant to believe that this withstood these incredible heats and incredible vacuums of space. It's a bizarre concept when you look at it, really, if you actually believe it, in my opinion. But this week and the last few weeks researching the flat Earth, you have to kind of not only look at that, you have to strip back your entire belief system of space and reassess it with an open mind. Because if the Earth is not part of this solar system that we are told, where we orbit the sun and all these planets orbit the sun and there's a Milky Way galaxy and all of that, then the whole concept of space changes. What is that? All we can say for a fact is when we look in the night sky, there's lights there. When we look up, there is a sun there. There is a moon there. In the same way that, things like gravity, the proof of gravity doesn't exist. We can prove there's a force that when you jump up, you come back down. Whether you can prove that's gravity or something else, electromagnetism, magnetism, buoyancy, whatever it might be, that's the next question. And I think the same when it comes to space. And people will argue that, but I can see the stars. I can see, yes, you can. That bit is absolutely true. You can see something, but the next question is, what can you see and why can you see it? And I think that's where we need to ask more and more questions. And you've only got to look at NASA, organizations like NASA, who funds them. And just look at the Atmos mission of recent times. And even people who are the most, ardent mainstream thinkers that believe everything that comes out of their news organizations, even they are going, well, hang on a minute, that looks a bit green screen, doesn't it? It looks a bit CGI. Well, one of the things that's blown my mind in the last few weeks is these images that we see of the Earth, the very famous one that they call the blue marble, where, you see this picture of the Earth. That's not actually a picture of the Earth. That's an illustration. And they don't hide that fact. People just don't look and don't check. So most people will say, and we've found this when we've spoken to random people, is the Earth flat or round? And they'll say it's round, it's a globe, I've seen the pictures. Well, those very pictures that you're looking at are not real. Or that very famous picture that we see that gets displayed isn't real. That to me is, well, hang on a minute. Well, what are we thinking then when we say it's round? What are we basing that on? Now, I'm not sat here saying I believe the Earth's flat. And one thing that's really interesting is neither do a lot of the flat earthers. I actually think flat Earth is a misrepresentation of a lot of these views. They're just saying the globe isn't real. They don't believe in the mainstream scientific consensus that we live on a ball spinning at 1,000 miles an hour plus at the equator, orbiting the sun at thousands of miles an hour, where the sun's 93 million miles away and the moon's 250,000 miles away, yet they appear to be the same size in the sky because of the distances. And so they're just saying they don't believe that. They're saying that heliocentric model, as it's known, doesn't stand up to scrutiny when you look at the very foundational claims of it. And I have to say, from the research, the information I've heard, I agree. It doesn't stand up to so many questions. There's not explanations that are satisfying for why you can see so much further than you should be able to see according to the curvature measurements. There's no explanations for why certain things happen in certain ways. You're sat looking at a river, for example, and we're led to believe, but most people don't think about it from this perspective because this is something we're told from day one and we probably never think about it again. We're told that the river isn't the one that's flowing and moving. The earth is. Does it look like we're moving? Does it feel like we're moving? I've never felt that. I don't know if you have. I've never seen curvature myself that's made me conclusively believe I can see over the horizon. I've chatted to pilots and people who, in theory, should know a hell of a lot more about it and have seen more, and they argue the same. They've not seen it. And then when we come back to NASA, we are led to believe that these rockets launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida and reach a speed of 25,000 miles an hour. Just comprehend for a second how fast that is. Bearing in mind, Concorde, the fastest aeroplane, commercial jet, was around 1,000 miles an hour. You're flying 25 times faster than that just to escape the atmosphere. Well, you've seen the rocket launches. They don't look like they're going particularly fast to me. They certainly don't look like they're going 25,000 miles per hour. It falls apart when you ask questions. Absolutely falls apart. The whole concept of NASA, the whole concept of space, the whole concept of the moon being what it is. And it all ties in. And it's something that I have to say I wasn't that intrigued by until I've started looking into it, because I didn't necessarily believe it had as much importance as other subjects. And I now feel quite ignorant for having that mindset, because if you don't believe in the globe, or you certainly don't believe the official story of the globe, whether we're living on a much bigger globe, which would explain why the metrics seem to be wrong, that's an explanation, whether we're living on a flat plane, whether we're living in some kind of dome under a firmament, all bets are off. And to be fair, having chatted to a lot of the most prominent flat earth researchers, their opinions are the same. All bets are off. There's no scientific consensus among flat earthers of exactly what this is. They just say it's not that. You got the Gleason model, which is what most flat earthers will refer to as the most sort of commonly accepted depiction of what the earth may be like. But it's certainly not something they all nail their colours to the mast. But they just say, look, it's not my job to prove the earth's flat. It's my job to prove the globe isn't. And then it's their job to prove it is. And they can't. So to me, this is a fascinating subject. And the reason I think it's important, and the reason I probably overlooked it, I didn't understand just how important it is in terms of understanding or your relationship with reality. Because if you believe this is flat and it's some kind of dome, firmament, whatever you want to call it, then that proves a form of creator. Whether you want to call that a god, whether you want to call that a devil, whatever you want to call it. And we can obviously then argue and debate whether we believe that's something malevolent or benevolent and it's a positive or it's a negative force that's created this. I'd now, gun to the head, I'd say there's probably a bit of both. And that's why in this world, when we look around, we see this constant battle of good versus evil. We see the beautiful landscapes of nature, and then equally we see the brutality of nature at the same time in terms of the law of the wild. And that doesn't just apply to us. You've seen a lion chase a gazelle. It's pretty brutal. And I think there's possibly that battle, but it proves some form of creator. And what it does, and this is just to finish a really interesting point I'd like to leave you with on this subject, is we're led to believe by mainstream science that we're essentially irrelevant. There's this little ball of land and sea in the middle of infinite forever of this incredibly unfathomably big universe that you're talking numbers of light years and galaxies and trillions of stars. We just feel tiny, irrelevant, insignificant dot, which makes people feel small, makes mindsets small. Whereas if you reassess that and actually conclude, well, we have some form of creator and we're at the epicenter of that. We're at the center of that universe. We're created for a reason. All of a sudden, your relationship with yourself is completely different because you're not an insignificant dot in infinite forever. You're something very special. And I think that would change the world for so many people, simply reassessing that. So I'm not saying I think the earth's flat. I'm saying I think the heliocentric official globe model doesn't stand up to some quite basic questions, I have to say. And the final point to leave you with, if nobody told you the Earth was a globe, what would be your opinion of what it is, based on your experiences of driving down roads, of looking off cliff tops, of going across oceans, of flying? Would your own lived experience of what you have seen with your own eyes tell you it's flat or round? I think we all know the answer to that. And I think we do live in an age, and we saw this through COVID, we see it with climate change, we've seen it with so many different things, where you are conditioned to disbelieve what you see with your own eyes. Don't trust your own eyes. Trust what we tell you. That's the world we live in. And I think going back to a situation where we trust what we see with our own eyes, we have confidence and belief in what we think and what we have to say and what we observe. I think that would be another major way that we could change the world pretty damn quickly. Well, thanks for watching. If you're with us on Twitter or YouTube, head over to iconic.com, click the link in the description below, and we're going to cover a few more stories in this morning's episode. I'll see you over there.
In 1943, the government seized Nikola Tesla's most dangerous invention, a healing technology that threatened Big Pharma's entire empire. They buried it for 100 years, but it's back, and over 1,000 people worldwide are using it right now. When you join Tesla Club, you get your own Tesla plasma device, 5 times more powerful than the original Violet Ray and built to last. You join a private Telegram group where members share breakthroughs daily. Stroke recoveries, cancer reversals, chronic pain gone in minutes. These aren't stories. These are yesterday's posts. You get lifetime support from people who've been where you are. Technical guidance, therapeutic protocols, a group that actually understands. And you get access to hundreds of documented experiments, real members, real results, real transformations. No prescriptions, no waiting for permission, no begging doctors who don't believe you. Just you, your machine, and a movement taking health sovereignty back. We're Tesla Club, private science club for self-directed healing. Visit tzla.club. Join the revolution.
Plasma. It's back! Don't mention the reptiles, Dave.
Even less is said about the Grey Pope, who some believe to be the true ruling power in the Vatican.
Humans emitting a MAC address.
All of them had Bluetooth signals.
I've never seen it before.
Queuing up to transition their children.
This is the ultimate suicide cult.
What if the symbols around us every day aren't just ornamental?
We lost 1,000 years of history.
What if they're instruction?
That state of awareness is not manipulatable.